for a bit. Welcome, everyone. This is the Rare Book Cafe, sponsored by the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair every Saturday on Facebook at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard or Summer Time. It's 202 days until the 2020 fair in the fabulous Art Deco Coliseum in St. Petersburg. And if you have not got your reservations, you better get on the stick because they go fast. St. Petersburg is a tumult of cultural activity all year long. You cannot assume there is a slow season there. There is not. There are people coming and going all the time. There are museums, there are artworks, there are festivals, and if you don't get your reservation in place soon, you're going to be staying 100 miles away and coming in on a hand cart. So I warn these things because I don't want to hear you complaining back to me later that I didn't tell you about it. And if you go, but mind you, not now, later, to the floridabookfair.blogspot.com site, you can see how to win free tickets to the coming book fair in this season's limerick contest. So you can see the rules, you can see how to do it, and you have plenty of time to put on your thinking cap and try to come up for a use of the word Nantucket that isn't vulgar. Today is also World Teachers Day, which we celebrate in honor of Queen Edie, who is with us at the moment and who enlightened generations of students before becoming the maven of miniature books. This coming week is also National Newspaper Week, which we honor because our producer and creator, Alan Smith, made his first career in the newspaper business as an editor. It used to be said that one should never pick a fight with anyone who buys ink by the barrel and paper by the ton, but now we have progressed to the age of Twitter, where you can say anything and lie all you like. These are also times when we celebrate the 95th birthday of former President Jimmy Carter, the oldest living president in American history. And the site Books Tell You Why on the internet has a good article up this week on collecting works by the prolific author who actually wrote his own books, which is kind of a novelty. We wish him many more years and many more books. In other book news, Christie's is auctioning off the first banned book in America. I mentioned that because this past week was Banned Books Week in the United States, but the first was Thomas Morton's book New Canaan, published in 1637. It's expected to bring $35,000 to $45,000. It was essentially a parody of Puritans and their religious manias and strictures of various sorts. And it will fetch such a good price is because not that much has changed in America in the 3 centuries since. Christie's is also offering a 3-volume Kelmscott Press edition of William Caxton in the 1992. It's expected to go for $3,000 to $5,000 for those of us on a budget. The week's record Penguin paperback that has sold for $69,000. Lady Chatterley's Lover was put on trial for obscenity in Britain in 1960. The presiding judge got a copy and had his wife mark up the naughty bits for him to aid him in his deliberations. Notwithstanding, the Attorney General who prosecuted the case, who asked the jury, is this the sort of book you'd want your wife to read, or your servants, or your boys, or even your girls. And yes, they too can read. And the jury collectively said, hell yeah. And it turned into a gigantic publishing boom for Penguin in 1960. One little paperback, the last survivor of that trial. The reason that the book has sold is because an American buyer purchased it, and the British government, which is less prudish than others, declared it a national treasure and delayed the sale for 3 months in order to see if British funds could be raised to keep it in Britain.
Huh.
Bristol University, which holds the papers of the later Chatterley's Lovers legal defense team, raised about half of the 69,000, and the rest was crowdfunded on an online site. So the book that outraged everyone when I was a boy, and which, looking back now, kind of a tepid read, will stay in Britain and will stay in a research library where it belongs. I'm Len Thompson, the sorcerer's apprentice of the Rare Book Cafe, twisting the knobs and dials behind the curtain from Chester, South Carolina, where we are blessed by overcast and 70 degrees after 3 months of temperatures in the high 90s. This particular week, it has been so hot that high school football games have been canceled because it was too hot even at night. And so we count
Wow.
our blessings for a break in the miserable weather. The next break we hope to get cut is for a hurricane to come this way because we have not had rain since late July and we desperately need it. So, any of you in Florida who see a storm coming, wave it on up north. The last one we had
Will
hopes
do.
on, ended up going to Ireland, which is just weird. So today we're going to be joined in a moment by Bill Wolfe, who is the producer of next weekend's Seattle Antiquarian Book Fair. But before we get to him, but also without excluding him, let's jump in with the Maharani of the minuscule, the Tsarina of the tiny, the Empress of the exceptionally small book. Hello, Edie. What do you have for us today?
Thank you, thank you. Well, today I have information, a lot of information. First of all, I had an email, not me exclusively, but people from the Florida Bibliophile Society, from Jerry Morris, and the Fall Journal of the FABS Fall Journal was mailed out, but only if you have paid your dues. So I would suggest that if you have not paid your dues, it's $50 for locals. It's $40 for out of town people, $25 for students, and it can be the money goes to Linda Morris, who's in Bayonne Point, Florida. I had also seen online that Todd Summerfield, who is really, really, really an expert on miniature books, is doing an article for the Microbibliophile on the little golden books. Now, I showed a few weeks ago some of the little golden books, and whenever we're out, if I see any, I will always buy them because I love to have them to give away to kids. But he is going to be doing an article for the Microbibliophile and started out in his discussion with printer's marks. If there are no printer's marks, you really can't decipher when the little book was done. Roman numerals were done from 91 to 93 primarily, and the alphabet printing tells you if there's an A, it's the first edition. If there's a D, it's the fourth edition. And there are some of them that have made it up to the 20-some edition. There are some of them that are increasing in value, as I said the other day or the other week, a few weeks ago, but they are really, really, really wonderful to have. Usually when we have a booth, I have a little basket, and when the adults are shopping in the alcove, you know, Thorne, I will take the children and say, you can go through these little books and you can choose whichever one you want while mom and dad are shopping. So the children stay busy. They're happy to choose a prize. And I get to give away these little golden books, which makes me happy.
But you know, Edie, you got to stop doing that when Steve goes to the bathroom and giving away the other ones. He's going to catch on one of these days.
That's what
But
my father used to do. If a pretty woman walked into our store, and I don't care what they took off the shelf and they said we can't afford it, my dad would say, go ahead, take it. It's my son's store. I'll explain it later. You can have it, honey. He gave away everything. I love my dad. It's gone
good
too
move.
long. And speaking of people that I love, Thorne. And when Thorne was at the Grolier Club, July 28th of 2000, they had an exhibit of miniature books. And at the time, the Grolier Club teamed up with Abrams, and I got a prize from Thorne. And to me, every miniature book lover should have one of these in their library. Now, this particular edition, which Thorne gave me, thank you again, Thorne,
No problem.
was put out by the Grolier Club, and it was done by Anne Bromer and Julian Edison on miniature books. It is without it. First of all, the name Bromer in rare books is one to go down as someone who's impeccable, wonderful in knowledge, and honest, and carries magnificent books. She became enthralled with the miniature books. And Julius, also, who was a businessman, became interested in miniature books and started to do a, an, a magazine. They collaborated on this book, which has magnificent color pictures of miniature books. And what they did is that they put these together in this book with the history of these miniature books. It is a book you can sit down and read. It's not a price guide. Karen Nyman, I'm still waiting for a price guide on miniature books. I love her catalog. But it is a description of the origin of these miniature books, how they were developed, and the Grolier Club edition of this book was put out in conjunction with the miniature book show that they had. And Thorne, God bless you, Thorne, brought me home a copy of this, which I treasure. If you are interested in getting one of those, this miniature book, 4,000 Years of Miniature Book, you can go online and you can find a copy in paperback. You can get a hardcover. You can get it from $10 up to about $70. The Grolier Club is collectible. Thank you, Thorne. And
All righty.
there are only 3 copies of this book that are listed online, and they are being sold by Bromer at Bromer's bookstore. So you know that that's wonderful. But that's what I was going to talk about today. That and one other thing. Christmas is coming, and you wind up getting these things in the mail with address labels. Don't stick them in a good book. Keep them to use for yourself unless you are a famous author or a famous person and your book plate would add to the value of the book. A book place that says property of Edith Eisenstein or this book belongs to Edith Eisenstein would only detract from the value of any book that I would put it in. So I'm doing a show and tell. Don't do that. And if you
Thank
like
you, Edie.
and if you like stuff, there is a catalog that comes out It's called Bass Blue. And the title of this is Books and Gifts for Avid Readers. Their items are a little pricey, not a lot pricey, but you can get a jigsaw puzzle that looks like a library. You can get a throw that looks like a library. You can get a coffee mug of Shakespeare. You can get a coffee mug of Jane Eyre. You can get all different book things, bookends, cats sitting on books, etc., etc. So I would suggest, if you like this kind of stuff and you're looking for a little gift for somebody for under $20 that would be book related, you can call them and get there, or go online and see their catalog and get all of these little things that nobody really needs but enjoys. And that's what I have to offer for today.
Well, thank you, Edie. That was a good thing, interesting. And the Grolier Club, yes, they are very collectible. There's almost, I think, every exhibit we have, they put out a book that ranges in cost from, I don't know, $50
really?
to, $50 to a couple hundred. I think every book, every big show has that, not the little shows, but
Well, I love
big
this
shows
book,
a year.
and I recommend it to anyone that likes miniature books to sit down and read it. And then as you turn the pages, if you are a collector and you say, I have that in my collection. And it's nice to be able to recognize your own items. There are no prices in the book, but the book is a wonderful, wonderful book on miniature books.
What you'll also see from the Grolier Club is, or you'll see listings in people that, cataloging online. You'll see that a book is referenced in the Grolier 100, the Grolier Medical, the Grolier Children's. There's 4 or 5 books that they've been in conjunction with shows that are the top 100 books, at least by the members' feelings. And so they become somewhat of a standard, and people go off and I think the Grolier 100, I've got a copy around here somewhere, and I would say to complete that may or may not be possible, but if it was doable, it would be very deep pockets.
Well, this book that was done was dedicated to Marcus of Neiman Marcus, who was a book collector and also had a tremendous collection of miniature books. And I beg your pardon, Steve?
His wife wouldn't let him bring books home.
But his wife wouldn't let him bring more books home, and so he started collecting miniature books. But I treasure this book that you gave me, and can't believe it was that long ago. But thank you, thank you, and thank you for your friendship.
All righty. Well, thank you very much for your show. And now we're going to get on to chatting with Bill. It's funny, as we were talking before, this is Bill Wolfe, who's running the Seattle Antiquarian Book Fair. Is that the correct title?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And, I think that what we have here is, we're like I mentioned when we were chatting before, that I'm on the board of the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair. And we just, this year, there's been there's an LA Book Fair, this, I think, in their second year. There's a couple up in the New England area. I think I saw one in Ohio. There's a lovely website that lists all the book fairs. And I just think it's great to have, people say, well, isn't it competition to you? My God, a flight from Miami to Seattle, I think, is the longest flight in the United States. I think you guys are further away than us than LA to New York. But I just think it's great. And I wonder if you could, tell us a little bit about yourself and your, your bookstore. But let's start with the show. Hi, Steve. What's up?
Hey, Thorne. Hey, Bill. Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah. Yeah, same to you.
How long has that show been going on now?
The Seattle show?
Yeah.
Since 1978 was the first one.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
it went through a number of venue changes, and
don't we all?
Yeah, exactly. And so at the time, it was an every other year show. I think it got up to like just 1980 or 82 only before someone just sort of forgot to run it. So there was a year, and it kind of recalibrated. But I calculated yesterday for the first time ever, just out of curiosity, that I believe this is a 30-second show. In 1997, It turned annual, and that was when Lewis Collins, my old-time friend who passed away last year, he took it over in '97 and really kind of kicked it into the next gear, made it more sustainable, made it an annual fair, and it just really started to take a bit of a different flavor with international dealers coming in,
Good.
and just a more sustainable and a better venue to suit the various people that are going to come in to both exhibit and see.
Where is the venue?
These days it's Seattle Center's Exhibition Hall.
Okay.
So it's kind of right there on this large kind of city space that's got a lot of other attractions. So lots of it's just a great neighborhood and place for kind of catching tourists and.
Do you have peripheral things going on besides the book selling? Are there any events, seminars, or any other things for people to attend at the fair?
Yeah, well, we in the past we had done a few things. Namely, we hosted a dinner and a number of times. So this sort of gets separated between what Lewis had done and put in the late '90s and early 2000s versus, and I've been on the show since 2012. Where since then we haven't done a whole lot. We used to do we used to put on at least the last time it happened, it was a town hall event with and we would usually try to kind of catch a famous author or celebrity that Lewis might have met in the literary world and have them come in and do a reading or a lecture. So we kind of I think as a matter of Lewis's age, getting up there and just the amount of work that it takes to pull out the show to begin with, we started to dial back a bit with that kind of stuff, but we still have a number of essentially private exhibitor only events that happen during the week of the fair. So that's various dinners, and I'm going to bring in music this year for the first time for the exhibitors in a separate location. But in going through a lot of the old papers of the book fair, I had found the original letter that Lewis and his at the time partner David Greger had written to the mayor of Seattle, pleading for this week to be called officially the book fair week, and it worked. Yeah, so they had that done a few years in a row, especially when they did have these other sort of ancillary events taking place. And I'd like to slowly creep towards that again. I mean, there's so much energy here.
I'm not going far.
I'd like to build some of that stuff back in for the public as well. So.
Yeah, we do a lot of. I'm not sure what he has.
That's exactly what you're talking about. A proclamation.
Yeah,
declaring it Rare Book Week in Miami Beach. Get the mayor, go to the state level, get the governor. It's tremendous press. When you can open up the statement with somebody declared it, whatever you want to declare it, the press goes all over it, and you really want the press all over anything you do.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think we will slowly. I mean, Lewis passed away last year. It was my first fair to do solo. We had never really written anything down about how to pull this thing off, but luckily enough was sort of logged in my mind from having done it for 6 or 7 years that I just wanted to make sure this thing, was kept on the tracks and carried forth, and it went well. And now I feel like year 2, I can begin to sort of build in some of my ideas that I've had over the years and some of the things that even he used to do to really kind of, just further fill it out and help it grow and just make it a more enjoyable experience for both the exhibitors and the patrons that come in. So,
what's the procedure at this book fair if somebody has a car full of books? Do the dealers go out to the car? Is there a meeting ground in the lobby or anything like that?
Yeah, the latter more or less. We do tell patrons that they can. Now, I've never seen a carload, although we could probably figure out.
We literally had a couple really cars full of
many.
You don't believe it, yeah.
But generally, the owners of the books will come into the fair and they'll check their materials at the coat room, and then they're free to go out on the floor and sort of tempt the specialists that they would like to
Yeah.
see them over. And so we just, as a security issue, we do it right there up front. But yeah, lots of people take advantage every year of this.
Yeah, there are great buys. I mean, Thorne myself, I'm sure there are other dealers, but with frequency, we have been called out to the parking lot. Sometimes we got to fight, but
Yeah. So I mean, sometimes it's the old joke of buying your way out of a book fair, and I've made some Huck Finn comes to mind, the first of Huck Finn, and several times it's been stuff that I really had no access to, and somebody just grabbed a box of books and brought it on over here, and I've seen some stuff that I missed that I was really quite not jealous, but I guess so, because there's good things, and especially a major city like Seattle or St. Petersburg. I mean, with what's buried in the attics, if you will, is phenomenal. I mean, I just I'm still grading some books right here that were parked next to the trash, and somebody rescued them. I mean, you wonder where. I mean, it's good stuff. It's so.
How are you finding sponsors? I mean, I don't mean how are you finding them. How do you find the cooperation with sponsors and things like that?
I mean, we really don't have a lot of literal sponsors. We really the only one that comes to mind in terms of actually, infusing money into the fair to get things done throughout the year is the ABAA, the Pacific Northwest chapter, gives us a nice gesture, as well the Portland Fair. But outside of that, and then we're partnering with with the Friends of the Seattle Library this year on a promotional level. They've moved their huge annual sale into the same venue that we do the book fair as of a few years ago. And I go to that, a couple times every year, because it's a 3-day event. And I've always just marveled at the number of people that just line up around the building to get in there. And the gears started turning, and I approached them and I said, you've never exhibited, and we've never had a line that looks like that. So let's get together on this. So we're doing that this year as well.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I once gave a booth to Brandeis at a book fair. There's the same kind of thought. It was a charitable book funding book rate, where they funded off of books. And that's a great idea. I hope it leads to a lot of patrons for you. You get into their mailing list and things.
Bill, you mentioned, and I may have just misunderstood you. You said Book Week. Are you a 5 or 7-day fair, or how many days is your fair? I think I misunderstood you.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, in the past, Lewis had events that took place, let's say, at least about 5 days surrounding the fair. But the fair itself for the public is just Saturday, Sunday. Of course, Friday is the exhibitor-to-exhibitor feeding frenzy, and then drop-off is Thursday. So for me, it's more of a week, but for public and patrons, it's just Saturday, Sunday.
Well, I am actually very confused. I want to keep talking about the book fair. We can probably pull this in. You've mentioned your friend Lewis Collins, and who did not know he passed away. And I believe when I looked at your bio, which again I may be having a bad hair day, I thought you owned Collins Bookstore.
Yeah. So Lewis.
Okay, well that gave you an everything to explain that one.
Okay, all right. So let's start back in 1969, maybe, where.
All right. I remember
that was when Lewis got his resale number for Collins Books. That was in the Bay Area at the time. He moved up to Seattle. Yeah, he moved up to Seattle in the early 80s, around 1980. He moved most of his books up, and had a few still in the Bay Area for a time during that transition. So then he was Collins Books. He was in Capitol Hill, neighborhood of Seattle, and then. He always told me that in 1997 he got involved in the fair here, but I was looking. I've seen sort of programs and paperwork that suggests that he was actually involved a little bit earlier, even as a director, at least a co-producer. So his involvement goes back that far with both Collins Books and the book fair, Seattle Book Fair.
I've got a couple of old issues of AB laying around from that time period. If I see any kind of splashy ad for the Seattle Book Fair, I'll mail it to you for your archives.
That'd be great. Yeah. And it's always been an interest of mine going back to at least 2012 when Lewis invited me on board
Yeah.
to put the history together, because it was funny that I would ask Lewis one thing about the fair, and he by that time had 2 decades of experience running the show, and then other dealers that had, that either live in Seattle or had been involved in the fair for a number of years too. They would disagree about, of course, dates and times and venue changes and stuff. So I've always wanted to sort of lock down everything.
Good luck on that one.
I know. But these paper trails help, and I've got a number of the programs by now, and so I can at least put together who's been here and in what years. But certainly any history of the fair, and I come across things in collections that I buy that, old Seattle Book Fair promotional postcards and
oh yeah,
and
pull them out of the books.
Yeah,
Bookmarks and all ephemera.
Yeah. So long story short, Lewis's business began Collins Books in 1969. His involvement with the book fair came about in the mid 90s, let's say. I met Lewis in 2005 through a great friend of mine who was my first landlord in Seattle as I moved here. Artist, revolutionary, hippie type, great, interesting person. Got to meet her entire network of like-minded people, and Lewis was one of them. So we hit it off immediately. We became great friends. And then essentially when my daughter was born in 2011, I moved to Ohio and came back, and that's when Lewis invited me onto the fair, and then shortly after to the bookstore too, to Collins Books.
Got it.
So we just hadn't looked back. And then he passed away January of last year, and it had been his plan even before he invited me on to either of these to help him with either of these businesses, that I would one day take these over. And so it's been a blessing to be put in this position, but also I take it very seriously, and I mean to do them well by carrying both the bookstore and the book fair forward with, everything I've got.
Reputation is everything. There's no
Absolutely.
doubt about that. How many exhibitors?
This year, 102. I think the
Wow.
current, and it's always a nervous week, because I get, last year, for instance, I had 11 cancellations in the last 3 or 4 weeks, and there have been far fewer this year, but it seems pretty solid at this point. A week out, less than a week out, that we're going to have
Got a waiting list?
Well, no, I would have
Not yet.
Except that I built out the floor space this year, so I've been able to accommodate everyone. If we had only put the standard 88 booths in there, like we always had, I'd have at least 4 on the waiting list waiting to get in. So
what's a booth cost? How many variations of booths can you get?
So we have a row of, well, first of all, just a full booth on the sort of normal floor is $1,000. Half booth is $550, and then we have some sort of premium booths, we call them, that are front facing and right in the front. They go for $1,200, and those are sort of locked in. There's very little turnover on those.
They always are.
Yeah, I know
you're not leaving it.
Right. Certain alcoves that are being left in the will to their heirs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I have an alcove booth. I will never give it up.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, but I think it's always been my interest to figure out better ways in which to not only use the space that we're in, but also give avenues to people who can't necessarily afford to drop $1,000 to exhibit, a way to this, great opportunity to sort of exhibit their books. So kind of, as I said, building on what I said before, it's just now I'm really going to use the next few years to sort of incorporate a lot of these ideas to make this thing grow.
If you can afford it, why not? I'm big into giveaways. I've been on boards of book fairs and all this, over the years. If you can afford to do it, give away a piece of a booth or a 6-foot table, and make a big to do about it. In terms of the advertising and things.
And that's what I have done, and I have a whole list of new exhibitors, which they would become if they were able to come So we've always given a free table away, and this is in my time, so at least since 2012. The Book Club of Washington, the Book Arts Guild, and Carl Montford Press, a local presser. They've always had free tables, and I've given a few others out in the last 2 years now, including this year, and still have a list of others. And we've also done the Rare Book School.
We're friends with them. I go there.
Yeah.
So we're friends with them.
Yeah. So certainly any way that I can include, I mean, this is not exactly about the money for me. I mean, as long as the fair is sustainable and it's not losing money, then I'm willing to give this platform away to those who have, something to do in this sort of literary.
Yeah, it's good thing to do. And it's actually pretty good business. You bring in nice folks, the word gets around. It's the old good karma thing, and you've got, I heard you who you're going to give it to, and those are good people.
Gut reaction question, just out of curiosity of somebody who likes to ask these kind of questions and observes the business. If you are approached by somebody that would give you a sponsorship, but they wanted to do one of the free appraisal booths in the lobby, you think your patrons would like it, your exhibitors would like it, or would they be against something like that? What's your feeling about it?
We've talked a number of times about appraisals, and it always sort of gets shot down for the security problem that it presents.
Define that problem, just for I'm curious what you consider the problem it creates.
Well, I guess it depends on the logistics of where we place it. Of course, if it's on the main floor, mixed or alongside the other exhibitors, then we're seeing materials.
Yeah. It can't be. No, it can't be. It have to be in the lobby.
We do ours in the lobby. We have a lobby that's done by the Florida Bibliographic Society, and they do it Saturday afternoon from 2 to 4 or something like that.
They do it as a in a different motivation than a sponsorship, and the way that works is just absolutely perfect. They get check numbers like in a hat check. They never enter the room, the selling floor with the books and all that's out of the lobby. Now, I was curious because I've asked this question to several people that are in your seat, at different book fairs, and I was curious what the reaction, would be on the premise that everything was good. It met the security standards and all that. Sure. Do you think that's a good or a bad thing to be able to say you have all those, people can come in for a free professional evaluation per se?
I mean, I think it would be one of the very first things that I would build in to the program if we can.
Customers.
Yeah, I mean, it's a slam dunk. I mean, all these specialists descend upon Seattle in this particular building.
Oh yeah,
would be crazy not to ask them if they might, for their own sort of marketing purposes, maybe lend some of their expertise to the patrons that come in that may then very well go through that booth and buy materials. So, it's a nice thing that I think we'll probably figure out in time.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. I see that you have great taste in sets. I notice you're
what's behind you?
What you have there is the same as mine.
Usually I ask that question first. What's the fourth book on the left shelf?
But out of curiosity, I know I'm not going to talk football with you, but Seattle is reasonably famous for a few things such as Apple. Excuse me, wrong. It's called Microsoft, and something called Amazon, which I believe started as a bookstore when Jeff was wandering around in the Hitherlands. And I'm just kind of curious because those are two of the. I think Amazon, they're very important companies. I'm not going to go whether you like them or not because they have tens of 20, 30,000 employees each. I imagine in the Seattle area, with Microsoft in particular being one of the major tech companies in the world. Amazon, I guess, is the largest retailer or something like that, but with an influence on books. I mean, I know they sell washing machines. I don't know if I've ever seen anything they don't sell legally.
You're in your home court. You should be banging on their doors.
But I was just curious. If you ever see not the sponsorship as customers, do you see a computer geek do you sell computer books, histories of computers, math, Einstein, science, heavier science and technology than you would say in Baltimore, where they sell boat books? I'm just, I'm kind of going that way.
Question.
Do you see it from your customers as they're educated, they're smart, they're reasonably well paid, most of them, I understand.
Right.
That's a customer market we don't get. St. Petersburg is tourists, retired. There's a lot of college students. There's an affluent segment, and Tampa is I think it's the second or third largest city in Florida. So I mean, we've got 1 million or something people to draw from, probably more than that. But I mean, do you notice a geek squad walking around your book fair there?
I think so.
Pocket protectors and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it might not be as it's certainly at least a younger crowd. I watched with intense interest every review of every book fair, especially here. And, things are forwarded to me, and it does seem to have, and of course I'm there and I'm watching who's coming through these aisles and stuff. And it does, we are getting the younger crowd, and they do seem to be actually buying, which is that next step. So yeah.
Are you familiar with the Facebook site Antiquarian Book Fairs?
No, I'm not.
Okay, there is a Facebook site called Antiquarian Book Fairs. It's relatively new, about a year or so old. It was founded by Michael Bathrick, and I would just tell you, if you're going to do any posting, put up an ad there. It doesn't cost anything, and it's in Facebook. Simple title: Antiquarian Book Fairs. What's your attendance?
Last year we had about 1,400 or 1,500 people through the door. On Saturday, it was almost 1,000, and the ticket takers, Jeff and Loretta, longtime volunteers, they go back further than Lewis. They said that was the most people they've ever seen come in on a Saturday.
Well, you're doing the right thing. Whatever you're doing, keep it up and rock. Yeah.
Last year was just doing the same exact thing over again. Let's make sure it's just still here. But then, I'm really expecting a further bump, in attendance at the gate for our partnership with the Friends of the Library.
That's a huge thing too. The combination there.
Yeah, it's just been an enormous blast of emails and promotional. I mean, they've done posters and hung our posters too all around, and I think it's going to be a noticeable bump.
I think human resources at some of those corporate headquarters should know about you.
Well, so yeah, I mean, maybe this gets a bit into that sponsorship question again, and it generally makes me cringe because, I'm not, the moment I have to sort of begin to seed what this is about or who we are or how we do it.
Yeah. That's a question.
Yes, it makes me.
I'm not talking about in terms of sponsorship. I'm talking about just in terms of going to, we've done this. That's why I say it. If you go to a human resources department and let the human resources director know that there is an antiquarian book fair going on, it might be too late for this year, but in the future, we've had a lot of cooperation from that with some of the, banks and other things that we did it with when I did a book fair here.
Yeah. Well, I do have a short list of local companies that, again, in time, and I've got lists of notes everywhere about things, but a short list of companies that I would consider, let's say Amazon, for instance. If you flash your badge, you get in for free, but have some sort of arrangement with some of these local outfits that could increase our exposure just by getting their employees. Young
promotional considerations, an easy thing to give away.
Exactly.
And what you get for it is amazing,
Yeah, exactly. So
I hope you have decent food there. We're still working on ours.
It's so funny for me to consider this, but it's an absolute truth that every year, these exhibitors can go to great lengths to get here and to bring great material and the cost of getting here and just the sheer effort and energy, sweat, and if they don't sell a thing, as long as the food's good and reasonably priced, I've always
one of my favorite coffees. I have. Let me just see here if I've got one. It may not be down here yet. Now, Seattle's best coffee. I bought some at the grocery store yesterday. I think you guys are better than Star Wars.
Okay.
Not Star Wars, Starbucks.
Star Wars.
Yeah, whatever. When I was reading your bio, you had something here that fascinates me, and I'm not too sure what it is. So I'm going to let you roll with this one.
Okay.
I'm hoping I have this right.
Okay.
The Northwestern, I know where that is. Book, got me in that. Collector Network.
Okay.
I've got the first three words, but what's a collector? What's that all about? That sounds kind
People
of cool.
collect books about the Northwest. I'm spitballing.
Yeah, who knows?
No, well, not
No. Okay.
well, although those books would fit in this idea. So,
Yeah, what is it? Talk
yeah,
to me.
so this is an idea that's about ready to launch. I've had to spend a few years, and I hope this will be the last year where I'll just need to sort of collect information. I need a critical mass of people to make it go. So the idea is essentially to take, to on one hand, create, essentially collect a database, a list of collectors, given their various interests in collecting, and have them sort of in waiting for at least a local dealer, and let's call that Washington, Oregon at least, and they're just sort of in waiting for when, on the other hand, I get notices of local dealers getting certain collections, in hand, and then sort of thematically, joining the two, such that especially shops such as our own, like Collins Books, who don't have a walk-in presence. There's a lot of online dealers, houses full of books around Seattle and elsewhere that have great books. It will give them an increased presence and a direct relationship with collectors that I've been able to access through the book fair. So
it sounds, it's a really good idea, but it kind of, if I'm wrong, correct me. It sounds like a modern version of a want list and hooking up the buyer with the owner of the particular material.
Yes, it
Am
would
I
be
on the money on that. Yeah.
And of course it would be kind of an opt-in service. I mean, we've had we'll have another little display up this year where those who are interested can essentially give me contact information, name, collecting interests, and then I've just been kind of logging that information for a few years until it feels like I've got something to offer to the dealers if they were to then be interested in accessing this crowd. And I just match up dealers with collectors over and over again until it really becomes something that takes off. So.
There was a book like that, but much broader term, much broader scope, called "I'll Buy That." It was actually sold by QVC. The author's name is Tony Hyman, but he went all over the place, not just in specific with matching books with collectors. If you ever, you might see a copy somewhere, you might want to look at it for just some ideas that he had. He did very well with it. For that to be accepted on QVC as a product with that as the subject, I think he hit one of the Grand Slam home runs on that subject. It's quite a while ago, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been ruminating around this kind of stuff for a really long time, and there's something here. I mean, we have all these people that descend upon this venue to shop all these great books every year, and at least for the people that are within reasonable traveling distance, and the other 363 days a year, I think there's there's some access I can provide. There's some sort of education I can give in terms of other places where they might be able to find these books, these same kinds of books too, right under their very noses in Seattle.
Or at the book fair.
Yeah, right. So, and that's another thing, for anyone who might be coming this year to shop the aisles. And I think, a lot of the bigger collectors may understand this already, but to just, for any book fair in general that announces their exhibitors beforehand, you can always go on the website, see who's coming, look up those individual exhibitors' books online, make a few plugs before the fair happens. Bring that material to the fair for you to see. So I'm hoping that even that kind of thing can just be more sort of out there and understood by those that are coming to these fairs everywhere.
Kind of tying into that, I believe you mentioned that your store is not a brick and mortar open to the public. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we're just well, Lewis had a shop.
Yeah. So did he have it? Didn't he have a shop for a long time in the Bay Area and then in Seattle? I've heard. I'm afraid I don't. I've heard of him. I've never met him. And I'm not going to sit here and say long lost friend.
Sure,
but I'm always fascinated by other booksellers. There's always great stories. I'm sure you have a few that hopefully you can tell a couple of them that don't have dirty words in them or something, or will get you sued. But he has gone. I did something similar. I have a physical presence, but I'm open by appointment only because I'm a cranky old fart at this point. But I had a open to the public bookstore in one of the main streets in the West Palm Beach, and I sold it. Well, basically got an offer I couldn't refuse from the guy that owned stuff next door to me. But so it's an interesting transition. I find in our business as antiquarian books, you don't have a whole lot of people walking in that say, I want to buy a original copy of Gone with the Wind and I want to make sure it's in very fine condition. Yeah. You get that online, you get that at book fairs, and the people that are walking in want to use the bathroom or they want to buy children's books. I sold a lot of children's books. I had a whole children's section. It was great. But so do you when did Mr. Collins go from an open shop to a by appointment only? When did that happen?
So in the early 80s when he moved up to Seattle, he had a house that he lived in with the books, and the house did have a big sort of window at the street, but it was
really.
Yeah, but it was just off the beaten path. I mean, it was in a very popular neighborhood, but just, not many people really strolled through, and he liked being appointment only anyway. So at that time,
house with a window.
So he his doors were open until the mail came essentially, and then he'd lock it and get back to work. But then especially late 2016, we moved up here to this property, and now we're just out of a house. We're not zone commercial. There's no signage out front. But people are mesmerized when they walk in. We've got books everywhere and nicely organized and labeled. So on one hand, as the price of space increases and books take up a lot of space, a lot of dealers are being sort of, pressed back into their homes for raising rents and whatnot. But also, Thorne, like you mentioned, it's just the nature of the kinds of books we sell. And Collins Books is sort of scholarly nonfiction. I mean, people aren't necessarily coming in here looking for a site report for, from Northeast Turkey or archaeological, or linguistics of some West African tribe, a language in West Africa, So we're suited to, for the long tail and to put these things online. And then when people Swahili, right?
I'm trying to learn.
Bestseller right there. Yeah.
So we're sort of built to carry the scarcer material, and house it for a bit, shelve it for a bit, and we just don't have that walk-in traffic anyway. So we found put it this way. I mean, Lewis had done this since 1969. He found a way to create and sustain a livelihood and use books for that long where a lot of people could not. So
that's an accomplishment. That is truly an accomplishment.
Yeah. So now I'm just here to try to carry it forward and as we all know, to be ready for that next monkey wrench that gets thrown at us by whether it's and I won't mention names, but bigger corporations that help us sell books or just general, the general economy. It's we're all in it for the labor of love and not to get rich. So,
one of the things that came at me, and I make it no bones out of it, that I used to travel a lot, and I would carry in my suitcase 5 or 6 or 8 books, and the silly things weighed 10 pounds or whatever it was. And I think it was the day Kindle came out, or not the day the iPad came out. My daughter got me one, and I discovered the fact that I can go to Amazon or Apple or whatever and push a button, and for a very low fee, I get something I want to read on an airplane. But also, I have gotten some people that are starting to talk about the fact that as Kindle as a positive force, that people will get. Yeah, I mean, let's face it, Amazon is huge. People will read a book by an author, and then they discover. Well, they can obviously go back to Amazon, but they discover they want a book, they want a signed copy, they want to start collecting whatever. And just because you're in the computer geek and Amazon capital of the Western world, have you noticed anybody saying that, hey, I bought this thing as an ebook or as a downloaded for a lot of colleges now? I used to teach at Palm Beach University, and we were starting when I retired. We're starting to use ebooks as textbooks. And have you noticed a reverse crossover from the ebooks back to us? Anything like that, or is that just me having a weird fantasy here that happened occasionally to me?
Shit, sorry.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's certainly happening out here. I've never seen ebooks, and I've been, at least in the earlier days, aggressive in seeking out this data. But people had sort of signaled the death of the printed word when those things came out, and that might have been a bit of a plateau just temporarily. But certainly, if anything, the Kindle sort of sales have plateaued, and books are fine. And the number of independent bookstores in this country is at one of the heights. It's
increasing. Yeah, I used to remember the ABA, and they went down to about 2,000 members. And it's back up to 4,000 or 5,000. I think they're all-time high. I haven't been a member a couple of years. I think they're all-time high. Their membership may be higher than it was at the previous peak, I guess.
Yeah, so it's
With
just
all the YouTube videos and things I read, even if 1% of the amount of people that are watching these videos, or 0.5%, it's one of those amazing statistics as to how many people every day are getting into the book business in some aspect of it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and you can even track that by just, I do this from time to time. I look up how many booksellers, active booksellers, are on books, for instance, in our state or in any, and it continues to grow. So I just see all of this stuff as being, I mean, it's a complementary piece. It's not a destructive. It's not a we're all sort of in this together, and it's pretty, it's promoting books, and that can't be such a bad thing.
I just figure you were at ground zero, and who better to ask, right? Hey, Alan.
Hi, Alan.
Hey, guys.
Well, Bill, this is Alan. Alan says, Bill, you guys can chat.
Trying to figure out where you are.
Time here.
Where are you?
I am glad that I got in to talk with you guys just for a few minutes. I hope everything went well. I can't wait to see the replay, but I just wanted to check in if it partly to see if it's even possible, and it's not only possible, but it's amazingly easy. So
you're rocking. You look good. You look good.
Where
are you? What's in the background there? It looks like the furniture store.
This is the Bronze Lady Home Furnishings. It's a boutique furniture store and design center.
Good guess on my part.
Yeah.
In Madeira Beach, and I've been taking pictures at a special event here. So I was sorry to miss the program, but looking forward to watching the replay, and also looking forward to seeing how the Seattle Fair rolls out. It's next week. Is that right? It's next week.
Yeah, a week from today, the public will be streaming in, and hopefully we'll have some nice things for them to see. So.
Tomorrow's LAX.
And I'm sorry, Bill. I can see your picture, but I cannot hear you. So
that
probably has to do with my setup that I'm not able to hear you.
Okay.
Well, that makes it a little difficult, but we've got it, and it looks to me like we are somewhat running a bit out over the time layer here, but I'm sure Lindsay can come on and do something about that. And Alan, we look forward to being with you when you can hear us.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, and I will see you soon. I can't wait to talk with you a little later.
All righty. See you Monday.
Take care, Alan.
Okay,
Bill,
yeah.
pleasure.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you for being on board.
Yeah.
And good luck with the show. And, like I said, you've got a great location up in the Pacific Northwest up there. I used to spend a lot of time in Vancouver. My ex-wife was Canadian. And so I never really, I was born in Florida, grew up in California. So it's kind of Canada. We skipped over Seattle, but I've been there numerous times. And, it's a great place. So I wish you luck. I don't know if I'll ever make it up there to see your show, but it sounds to me like you've got a good handle on a good thing and a good location you have the right attitude for it. And especially linking up with the friends of the library there, boy, that's going to be, how's your parking? I suppose that's your next problem. How's your parking?
May your exhibitors have filled receipt books and empty boxes, as I like to say at a show.
There we go. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Good attitude. Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity, guys, and good luck with your own. I mean to come down there and check it out and learn a few things as well in the coming.
Yeah, we've and not only that, we're probably, let's see, we're in March. Is that your rainy season?
April.
That's all.
Updates all week. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. It rains all the time. I remember Vancouver.
You have exhibitors from LAX coming up to you, I presume.
Yeah,
they'll do both shows.
Yeah, actually, that's a good thought to just go on there and see who the finalist exhibitors were. But I'm sure a number are headed right up here. And
we get that here. We get guys coming from New York and Washington show. I mean, you're going right down the coast of Florida. They sometimes just
I'm sure you have a calendar circuit too that people follow out there.
Yeah, we've got Denver, Albuquerque, Sacramento twice, Vancouver, Portland.
Yep.
So yeah, I think as certainly with LAX being a new one, as more may blossom, we'll find a way to network with each other, and we do from time to time talk with one another about all these kinds of issues. And
Rare Book Road Warriors, we live a life of danger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.